an incredible survivor's story to help those affected by violence against women. Welcome back to Irrepressible, ordinary people with extraordinary resilience, and I am mega excited to be able to share Ilza's story with you. I met Ilza a little while ago, and when I found out Ilza's story, I was literally blown away. Ilza shows up to the world today in a certain way. She's very happy, infectious in her happiness and her positivity. And so when she landed me with a video of her talking about her story, I couldn't believe it. And this is exactly what Irrepressible is about. Taking ordinary people that show up to the world in the way that they do, giving you their story and helping you understand what resilience really means. Ilza talks about fleeing an abusive relationship. She goes into detail about that relationship and how it impacted her. But what I really love about what Ilza does is she shares her story in a way that's going to help people in the same situation. Ilza wants people to know that you're not alone, that help and support is available, and that changing your life in the way that Ilza has is absolutely doable. I should give a little bit of a trigger warning here. Ilza holds back nothing and shares her story very deeply. Ilza's an incredible human being who I feel very, very lucky to know. And I really hope that you take from this interview the positivity and power that Ilza exuberates in her daily life today. If this is the first time that you've ever been here, please do make sure that you have subscribed and turned on the notifications so you know each and every time that I post a new video. And seriously, sit back and be in awe of what Ilza is about to share. Ilza, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great, and you?
Good, actually. It's good to see you. And listen, I'm excited about this interview. Genuinely excited about it. We've sort of partnered up on some work, and you encapture everything about why I do this actually because of your story. So before we get into that, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Okay, so I'm Ilza. I'm originally from South Africa, born and raised. I moved to the Netherlands in 2008, and I've been living here in the cold, wet country, coming from the sunny country. So yeah, I work for an international company for the last 4 years, and before that was also in that international company. Yeah, and I've got a son, and I've got a wife, and I think once you hear my story, you'll know why I have a wife.
Okay, I'm laughing because I know a bit about your story. I love that, by the way. So look, why don't we dive into that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the adversity you faced that's meant that you've had to be resilient?
So I was one of those rebellious kids that every mother hates having. I met a guy and I thought, this is just my Prince Charming on his white horse. I think about 2 months after our relationship started, we went to a party one night. Someone asked me to dance, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I should have actually said no, because the minute that dance was over, I got called one side and he broke my nose. That's how the whole situation started. And I know it was so fresh, you could still walk out, but you will not imagine how much you get manipulated so quickly in 2 months. Being 18-year-old, you're still young, you think, oh, I did something wrong, why did I do this? You start blaming yourself immediately. I'm so sorry, I won't do that again. I didn't realize this is how a relationship goes. So that's how it all started. It was like 2 months after I met him that he already started abusing. We were together for a total of 10 years, and in that 10 years, I did not have one normal day of my life. I had lost 2 jobs because he walked into my work, for example, and confronted my manager for having an affair with me, which wasn't true. Obviously, he was just totally obsessed. Uh, some weekends I would get locked in a room, especially the first Christmas. I'll never forget that. I was locked in a room. It's like a pantry from the Friday until I think the Sunday morning it was, so that I couldn't be with my parents for Christmas, my very first Christmas away from home. And you just sit there and you can't do anything. He doesn't bring you water, he doesn't bring you food. I was tied to a tree for a weekend with chains, real chains. We lived on a farm, so obviously you don't get much people there. And he tied me to a tree from the Friday till the Sunday night, 8 o'clock, no food, no water. He just abused me from day to night. You couldn't do anything. You wouldn't make eye contact. You wouldn't dare to back chat because that was not allowed. And at a certain point of our relationship, I did try to run away once, and he told me if I don't come back, I would regret it. So obviously I went back just for the peace sake of it. I think we were about 3 years together, and I said, you know what? How can I reassure you that there is absolutely nothing to worry about? Let's get married. And he immediately jumped into that. Let's get married. So we married. And that was probably one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life, because then I was his property. Now I own you, and now you do what I tell you. I ended up having to go buy his drugs, not like drugs. It was more like marijuana. And I had to go into the rural areas to go buy it. And the reason he let me do it is because if the police would catch him, he would get locked up immediately. If they caught me, then they had to have a woman with them to search me. They couldn't search me then. So I always had to go buy it. And one of the times I had left him, I actually my mom took me to the police station and we reported it and told them. And they told me, Ilza, do you think we never knew about this? We've been following you. We knew that you were taking the drugs. We knew you were actually driving around with it, taking it home. But we were watching you to take care of you because you're in this rural area on a Friday night where everybody's drinking and it's chaos and you're alone in that area with a scooter. And he just couldn't care. And one night I couldn't get it. I got home and I got beaten to pieces. He took, we've in South Africa, we've got these nice frying pans where you can put the roast in. He dent that thing on my head the way he hit me just that night because I couldn't find it. Yeah, it was a living hell. It was an absolute living hell. And in 2003, on Women's Day, South African Women's Day, which is in August, I decided I've got to do something. I cannot live like this anymore. So I asked him if he would like a cup of coffee. And he's like, of course, what do you think? You know, with that little attitude. And I made him coffee and I dropped a sleeping pill in it. And what he didn't know is with all this abuse and everything going on, I had reached out to my manager that I worked for at that time. And I told her what's on. And we worked on my safety plan together to get me out. And when he didn't see, I was packing some of my stuff silently and hiding it in places where I know he never would look. And the day he drank that sleeping pill, I grabbed the few boxes that I had packed. My manager was waiting just around the block for me. I called her and said, come, loaded the car, put everything in and went straight to the police station. And I got a court order against him. That was about after the 7th time that I had left him and went back every time. And statistics actually show that women normally leave 7 to 9 times before they finally make the last step. So I did the last step, got my bags, got the police station, got the court order. And the first thing I did was throw my SIM card away, that he cannot contact me. And we agreed that I don't go to the office for 2 weeks so that I'm totally hidden away by someone he didn't think I would ever be with. And my life changed then. I just picked up the pieces and that made me strong. I don't say, sometimes, you know, in the beginning, I thought I failed myself because how could you allow someone to do that? But it was a learning curve for me. And that's the reason why I'm sharing my story with you, is because you don't know who else is sitting there that doesn't have the courage. And it takes a lot from you to do that action, but only I could have made that decision. My mom and my stepfather took me away several times. I kept going back. If you are not ready yet to let go and move on with your life, no one is going to get you away from that situation. So that is, I cannot tell you my 10-year story in 20, 30 minutes. It takes more than that, but that's just an idea of what I went through.
It blows my mind. It genuinely kind of blows my mind, especially because like the conversation that we've had as well, you are like today, you seem very happy person. You're very like easygoing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're always kind of like smiling and making a joke, I think within seconds of getting on this call before we hit record, like we're both laughing because of something
Mm-hmm.
you said. How do you get to that place from where you were, from somebody destroying your life in that way? Because that's what's happened. You were nothing
I
but a
was
victim.
destroyed. Hmm.
Yeah,
I
and you
was
were the victim.
destroyed. I was a victim. I felt sorry for myself. I believed everything he said to me. He manipulated me. You start thinking that I have to listen to him. He's the only one that cares for me. Because at one stage, your family writes you off. Because we've tried several times to take you. You don't want to listen. Now you've got to feel it your own way. And today I understand, but at that time I didn't understand why did they write me off. But today I can sort of understand. You've got to make up your own mind which direction you want to go. And to be honest with you, these words I only learned 6 years ago when I met my wife, is that I choose my destiny. I didn't ever get help when I was in the situation. It was only my mom I would speak to or the odd friend here and there, but no professional help. I thought the day I walked out and I finally got the divorce through, I moved to another town. I actually moved to another country at the end of the day to just make sure I never see him again. Um, but I think it made me a very stronger person. I don't let people manipulate me anymore, and I choose to be happy. That's the whole
Mm.
thing. Is you determine your own destination. You determine, are you going to be sour and, oh, please feel sorry for me for the rest of my life? No, get over it. It was a learning curve. You made a mistake. I will be honest, when I came to the Netherlands, I did finally seek help, professional help, and that was 12 years after it happened, because then it started hitting me for the first time. After my son was born, I got married again after this vicious marriage. I got married again and I had a son with my ex-husband. And in all honesty, once my son was born, and this is not nice to say, but it was like, I got what I wanted. I got my boy, and now I don't care about men anymore. And I always knew that I liked women. So that's the
Mm.
reason why the things went the way it went. But I got professional help in the Netherlands, and I think I did that for about 6 months. And it just made me even stronger than what I am now.
Yeah.
It's really a mindset. You've got to speak to yourself and you've got to tell yourself you're worth more. You were not the problem. You're not the one to blame. You can't help it that that person had a problem, because if I'm very honest with you, Josh, he had a problem about the way he was raised, and I felt sorry for him. And I've always been like this, even during school. I always thought that I could save the world and I could help people. And my friends that I had were always problem children. And I thought that I could change him. I thought that I could help him. But you cannot help someone that does not want to be helped. Unfortunately, that is it. So you end up being the obsession of this person and the property of this person. And they really just, I mean, psychologically crazy. I mean, he would stand and talk to you and say, "Hi, how was your day? Did you have a good day?" And you're like, "Yeah, it was actually nice." And just because you had that smile on your face, you get a smack about it. So I rather would just say this. And as soon as he comes walking past you, you actually do this because you know he's coming to hit you. So, I mean, it took me quite a few years before I stopped doing that. If I felt someone behind me, I would do this for the first time. But luckily, it's over now because I decided to put it behind me and I don't want to live like that anymore.
Yeah. And people like him, I guess, prey on your desire to want to help people and your kind of like your compassion that you've always clearly had, right? Your kind of
Hmm.
desire to sort of be there for other people is exactly, he sort of took that and used that to be
Correct.
able to control you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really sick, those people. Sometimes people would say to me, he can't help it. That's just the way he is. Of course, you can help it. You could have gone for the marriage counseling. You could have gone for help and said, I need help. There's something wrong with me. But it was just about where can I hurt somebody to show that I'm in control, that control freak, and being in charge of everything and being the man. Man, if you hit a woman, woman, if you hit a man. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
look, I totally agree with you. And it doesn't matter what somebody's been through in their life; it doesn't justify the things that they
definitely
do.
not.
Do you know what I mean? Even if you can go, I can understand how they reached where they did. It doesn't matter. That's not a
Mhm.
reason. Not a reason for somebody like you to have to put up with everything that you experienced, right?
Correct, correct. So yeah, I did end up starting somewhere in the relationship getting panic attacks, which is logical. And I still have them today, but it's only when I'm really overstressed about something really serious, or I've got so much work to do, or it must be really, really serious, then it does come back. But I've got it under control, where at that time I didn't have it under control. And what I did to my family, if I look back today, even I look back the day I got divorced, what I did to my family, I felt bad about it, because there's your mother, your sister, your dad, your stepdad, everybody telling you, just come here, you'll be safe. They put burglar proofing on the windows so that I couldn't jump out of the windows. They locked me in my room so that I don't go away, just tried to keep me there. They got a lawyer to help me to get rid of him. And still you go back, because you're getting all these nasty messages, and via your friends he's sending messages, because he knows exactly what button to push. And you believe everything, and that's the sad part, is how you are manipulated when you're in a relationship like that. The marks that are still on my body reminds me every day of what I've been through. And it's not that I'm ashamed of it. I mean, I have cigarette burn marks on my back. I have it on my legs. I was stabbed with a knife. I was, what do you call it, pliers, rings pulled off with on my fingers with pliers. There's so many of these things that happened to me, and that things that my mom didn't even know. I mean, I never shared it with them because I didn't want to hurt her any further. But I'm over it. And it's like, I just want to reach out to people that don't know how to get out of it. The first thing you have to do is work on a plan, and you need to tell somebody. You need to tell somebody that you can trust, and need to work on that plan of how you're going to get out. You can't just say, I'm going to just grab a bag and run, because you're going to go back. You've got to know that your mindset is right. And I actually helped a friend in the Netherlands for the last 3 years. And finally, in November last year, she walked out with her 2 kids, and she's so happy. Cannot thank me enough for helping her, being there day, night. It takes years, months, hours, minutes, seconds to get somebody to finally make up their mind. But just don't give up. Don't give up, because at the end of the day, the coin is going to drop by that person, and she's going to realize that she's worth more than that.
So. And that kind of coercive control side of it sounds the biggest piece of the whole puzzle, so to speak, right? Because it's that bit that keeps you, going back. It's that bit that means you have to kind of come up with such a big plan. It sounds like your manager at that workplace was like a bit of a savior as well, to help you.
Of course. Plan. It's funny, she was like, she's a mind reader, because I didn't work there very long. And one day she called me to the office and she says, I want to have a personal talk with you. And this is really personal. So I'm closing the door and I'm like, okay, I'm in trouble. What did I do? And she says, are you going through an abusive relationship? And I'm like, how do you know? And she says, you just show the signs. I've been there myself. And I'm like, really? And I was like, I can finally speak to somebody. Somebody that relates to what I'm going through, somebody that knows exactly what the signs are. And she saw the signs, because we do show those signs. And funny enough, I see people that show the signs too. And I walk straight up to them and say, do you want to talk? And then they'll start talking. So that's what I did with her. And she said to me, let's start working on a plan. Let's get you back connected with your family. And she and my sister actually started connecting, and my mom was involved as well. But I was embarrassed with my mom, because she tried so many times to help me, and I just didn't take the help. So we worked on the whole plan together, had what do you call it, a code name, that if I would send her a code name, she knew she had to come immediately, but I never used that, to be honest. But she helped me with my whole plan, and she was there 100% for me, and giving me time off work to just hide and feel safe again, feel loved, feel warm, just feel normal. I mean, it's ridiculous to feel so scared in your life. When I look back at it now, and I'm thinking to myself, what is the most blessing thing that did not happen, is that I felt pregnant. What can you imagine if I had to have a child with that guy? That was one of my biggest fears that I had, but he always said he couldn't have kids, and I didn't know if it was true. So obviously you take the pill to make sure that you won't fall pregnant, and because you're taking that, you're sleeping around. So that was a few beatings in a row, because of thinking that I'm sleeping around, that's why I'm taking it, and not taking his word that he cannot have kids. But how can you trust somebody that has done so much harm to you? You cannot trust them. Also, before I left, I found out he didn't work at the last end of our relationship. I would give my salary to him, everything in little envelopes. Please go pay the debt, do this, do this. And after I left him, he shouted to me in court, "You're still going to end up in jail." And I'm like, end up in jail? I wonder why. He hadn't paid my debt for 6 months. He didn't pay my debt. He actually used the money. And I had to go settle all that debt that he never paid. And I mean, how can you live with somebody that's like that? It just doesn't make sense. I went to, also for the company I worked with, I had to go on a flight to another country or another town to do some training. And him and his mom kept on calling me, if I don't come back now, that he's going to drive off the mountain, he's going to kill himself. And I said, just make sure he doesn't have a seatbelt on. I know I shouldn't have said that, because the day I got off,
said it.
I did say it.
Yeah,
I did. I said,
did,
make sure he doesn't have his seatbelt on. But the minute I got off that flight back home, oh no, it was it was endless beating because of what I'd said. And that was the first time that he drew a knife on me. And I will be honest, I was really scared of that, because the brain just goes in a total different direction at that stage. You can see it in his eyes that he is so ready to just do something. And that was 2 days later that I gave him the sleeping pill. I think that was the final cut for me when that happened.
Wow.
So,
it's such, like you say, I mean, in the time that we've kind of got to do this, it's not long enough to kind of, I guess, do your story justice and what you've been through. But we've talked a lot about the kind of things that you use to be able to, I love your kind of views on how you see life today and taking things by the reins and really kind of moving through it. What would you say have been the main things that you've learned about yourself?
That I'm really strong.
Yeah.
I'm a very, very caring person. I love people. I'm a people's person, and I will do anything for the person next to me. As long as they're happy, I will be happy as long as you're happy. But it's got limits by me now. I'm definitely not going to come make myself short so that you're happy and I'm not. And you're not going to physically or emotionally drain me if you don't take some of my advice. What really made me strong in this one is to tell my child what I went through. And I did tell my child, because he couldn't understand, why was I always talking about my ex-husband? Was I married before my dad? And I'm like, yes, I was. And this is why I left him. And he also saw the marks on my back, and he always wanted to know. So telling him that story, and today he looks up at me and he says, you know, you were such a brave woman. And it's so good to know. That made me proud. I know it sounds stupid, but it's like my child is actually looking up to me because he knows what I've been through. And it's a learning thing for him, because now when he's scared of something, or he's not sure, he's only 14 years old. Now the little teenage nonsense is starting, but at least he comes to me. He knows he can come talk to me about anything. Maybe if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have been so open for anything that comes across my path. And even at work, people say to me, is there ever a day that you don't laugh or smile? And I'm like, hey, if I don't laugh every day or smile every day, something is wrong, because I want to be happy. I don't like negativity. I don't like people that are constantly breaking themselves down. One thing I'm not good at is taking compliments. That I will be honest. If someone says, oh, you look pretty today, I will just go like that. That is something that I really still have a hard time with. Yeah, it's more for me about you or the one next to me. Leave me out of the spotlight. I don't like spotlights. So having me on your show now is a spotlight, so it's really hard.
I was just about to say, well, you've got the spotlight on you, and you're going to find it hard to avoid some compliments from me before we kind of finish this out. I mean, it's like, you know, to hear your story in the way that, you know, you've told it, and I sort of heard it because I you know, heard bits of it before we spoke. For you to kind of be the human being that you are, I think is incredible. Like, I genuinely just think it's incredible. I'm sort of in awe of how you're able to show up to life today. And for me, it kind of, again, and so many of these interviews do this, it just summarizes why I do this. Because to see the way that you show up to life in the past, when we've spoken before in the past, and you show up to life, if I was in my struggle, I might think, you've never been through anything. Do you know what I mean? You're so happy, you've got an incredible life. And then boom, you tell me that story and you think, wow. And then it just, for me, it just completely encompasses hope. So if you can be the human being that you are today after that, then the possibilities for us all are endless.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. When you told your story, when I joined one of your sessions with your resilience story, I grabbed for alcohol when I was in this relationship. Especially when I left, I thought alcohol is going to solve my problem. But my mom, my mom knows I'm scared of needles. And she really wanted me to stop drinking. And she says, you know, alcohol is not going to solve your problem. And I'm like, just leave me alone. She says, I'm going to have you sent away. And every day they give you a needle in your arm with medicine to help you to stop. I said, okay, I will stop. Josh, I stopped drinking. I don't drink. I don't touch alcohol anymore. And that is just another thing to say, where I know that's how strong I am. If I say I want something, I get it. And it's just, why am I so strong with that? But when I wanted to get out, I wasn't strong enough because I didn't learn enough to help other people. That's how I see it. I needed to stay in that to learn enough to help other people get out of it. That's just how I feel about it. So I didn't fail anybody. I didn't fail myself. I got hurt. I've got the marks. I've got the scars. So what? I'm helping somebody else that really, really might not know how to get out of it. And there's always a way. You've got to talk. You've got to find your safety zone and your safety plan. That's the first thing you need to do. All your documents and stuff that you have that are your IDs, your passports, your banking stuff, everything, hide it away. Just don't share it. I mean, I know sometimes it's difficult and it sounds easy. It's not that easy, but you've got to take care of yourself. And once a beater, always a beater. It will never, ever stop. Ever. If they've done it once, they won't stop.
Yeah. And I think, listen, I think that's the, a great way to kind of part and end the interview, to give that advice to anyone out there that's struggling in that way. And I think if anybody that sees this, that's had similar experiences, and there will be people, I think they'll look at you and just know that there's always a way. And I think that's incredible. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're welcome.
And it's really good to know you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and allowing me to share the story with other people too.
Thank you.
All right.